Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being with us today. And we broadcast 2 hours a day, 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. through 11 a.m. Central Time. Thank you for being in class today. If you'd like to call, we'll pay for the call, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Protocol for calling in is really simple. If you're going to say something, it has to be the truth. No profanity. And you need to be on topic. Stay with the topic. No derailing. And that's it. And you have to be a lady or a gentleman. I mean, you have to be polite. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. Welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
I'm well. Your signal is breaking up. It actually is losing pieces of the transmission. Gosh. So, yeah, it sounds like almost like you're gargling. You're not, I understand, but the transmission would be close to if you were trying to gargle and speak at the same time. So during the first break, let's. I'm going to ask Jason to. Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's better.
All right. I just had to move a particular distance from the speaker, though. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
so what's new in your world? What's new in your world?
Oh, my gosh. The blue team are exposing themselves to who they really are. That's all I can say in a nutshell. Just this last week, it's been like one video after another has been coming up of the blue team just, at various events and, sometimes just, turning on their own. And, there'll be somebody just with a sandwich board type sign walking down the street with their child, and the blue team just come along and they abduct them off the street, ripping kids out of their mother's arms and all sorts. It's just been crazy, but they're just exposing themselves to who they really are. This is who they were all along, and this is what we were saying.
And you're talking about
that this mother was, shoved into the back of a paddy wagon. She didn't go easily. This was in Sydney, Australia. If anyone wants to see the video, then they can go to my Facebook page, and I've posted it there. And that's why I still have a Facebook page, so that I can do that, and that for research as well, and for finding out this sort of thing. But yeah, it's just been crazy. And then in a separate incident, there was a protest in Melbourne last weekend, and protesting, about our loss of rights in this country, which has been systematic especially over the last few years. Just the police going crazy, and this coronavirus has not made it any better. It's made it a lot worse. And the police seem to think that they are, that the rules don't apply to them, which of course is what we've been saying all along anyway. But it's especially true now. Oh my gosh! And this guy at this protest, he was saying, they were talking about how Mr. Kill Gates is going to introduce a a vaccine against any coronavirus because they mutate too quickly. And by the time you introduce it, you're 100 mutations down the line, and it's not going to be effective against that coronavirus because that coronavirus has already, mutated itself out of existence, and there'll be a new one. But that doesn't seem to matter to Mr. Gates. And, what he's got is patent number 2020-06-0606. If anyone wants to go and look it up, that's the patent number, and I kid you not. And it's a nano tattoo that is only visible under ultraviolet light, which means you're going to have to get an ultraviolet light shone on your skin every time you want to get this tattoo read. And, of course, that's a direct fulfillment of Bible prophecy in Revelation chapter 13. There was a guy in Melbourne, and he was, quoting. He said, I've got something to read to you guys here. And so he began reading Revelation chapter 13, where it talks about the mark that everybody would be required to have. And that word mark in the Greek means tattoo. It means a tattoo that a slave gets. And I would say nobody should get that, because if you do, you're just an idiot.
Hey, Guineith, you're breaking up really, really badly. Can you get closer to a window or something like that, and let's try that?
Okay. I have got the phone in the window. Otherwise, we might try and reconnect during the ad.
Okay. So, Jason, during the break, we need to reconnect, if you could try that. Okay. So, all right.
We'll see how's this?
It's a little bit better.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to move it around here a bit, because I think this is quite important. So, maybe we could go over it again afterwards, or keep talking about it, because how's that signal now?
It's back to being bad again.
Oh my gosh. Hang on. I'm just trying to move it around to various places here. How's that?
No, it unchanged.
Unchanged,
no.
Okay.
Right.
Anyway, the police, I'll go over this again. The police just descended on this guy as he was quoting this Bible passage, which is talking about the mark of the beast system, And if this is not any better, then maybe you want to say something for a little while.
Well, it did get a little bit better. Jason, do you want to try reconnecting? Okay, we're going to try reconnecting. In the meantime, while we are reconnecting with Guineith, I wanted to mention that there is a town in Nebraska at a meat packing plant, and according to Zero Hedge, that the employees, the workers there, are afraid to return. And this is a working class, poor location in Crete, C-R-E-T-E, Nebraska. And they're talking about the Smithfield packing plant. Dozens of demonstrators were holding signs. One read, "Our parents are essential, not dispensable." And they're referring to a rash of outbreaks at the packing facility and the inability of the company to shutter down for an extended period for thorough disinfecting. So the president, Donald Trump, is saying you can't shut down because this is, we're at war with this virus, and food is essential, so you got to keep running. And the employees are saying, well, really? There are 300 people who are sick at this facility. We don't want to go to work. And the people are saying, what about our meat? You know, the customers, the consumers. Consumers. What do consumers do anyway, other than consume? So there is this, thank you. There's this tension at this meat packing plant. And so now the employees they're protesting, their families are protesting, and the number of people who are infected. Now, you're gonna be surprised at this number. The public health crisis at plants that pack meat is at least 5,000 workers infected. 115 plants have been infected by the virus, 18 dead, and 5,000 at least have been infected. That's not like 20. 5,000 employees have been infected. And the rest of them are afraid to go to work. Now, would you be afraid to go to work if you worked in a place that you knew that there are 115 plants doing what you do at your job, and at least 5,000 workers in those plants have been infected with a virus? Now, some people think that if you get infected with the virus, it's just like not being infected. You know, what's the big deal? Infected or not infected? If you're infected, you can be really, really sick at death's door. And if you are, the likelihood of having permanent organ damage is very high. The likelihood of having brain damage is very high. So how many of you want to expose yourself to a virus that can cause brain damage and organ failure and permanent organ damage? Some people think this virus is nothing. Other people think it's really serious. I'm in the camp of it's really serious. There are doctors who have said, I don't know, nobody's sick in our hospital. Other doctors are saying, have you lost your mind? People are dying all around us. So industry-wide, beef and pork production has collapsed 40% last month. There are meat shortages right now. Kroger has had shortages. They're limiting the amount of fresh meat, whatever fresh meat is. It's really older meat. It's just in packages that make it look fresh. It's called fresh. But their supermarkets are limiting purchases. Wendy's fast food restaurants have even eliminated from their menus beef, beef products, hamburgers. The wholesale beef prices, 2015 to 2019, were averaging somewhere around $2.25 a pound, wholesale. The stuff that you buy for a little over $3 a pound. Well, now the wholesale price has gone from roughly $2.25 a pound, U.S., to $4.10 a pound. That was a couple days ago. I'm sure it's higher today. We'll be right back. Plus, I hope that you'll have a little bit of time to go to YouTube and go to the Ron Gibson channel, Ron, Gibson channel. And the reason I'm saying that is I don't know the exact dates of the broadcasts that I did this, but I did a number of broadcasts that were called USA Prepares Extreme Tax Deductions. Extreme, E-X-T-R-E-M-E, the conventional spelling. Tax deductions. The reason I'm mentioning this is as we go down this road where people have lost their jobs, you can regain some of that income that you've paid to your state and federal government by following what I said to do in extreme tax deductions on the archives. And if you find the date and you want to go to GCN and bring up the archive and download it to your PC, you can do that too. But I suggest you go to Ron Gibson's channel on YouTube to find extreme tax deductions. USA Prepares Extreme Tax Deductions. And the reason is those of you who have lost income because of the mismanagement, the ineptness just the recklessness of the federal government regarding the coronavirus, we are all at a disadvantage. Us too. I mean, here at the farm, we are at an extreme disadvantage. We are under siege. We are under economic siege, and we are scrambling to sell our cows. We're almost done selling 70% of our herd. Now, I want you to think about this. Let's put this in your terms. What would happen to you if you lost 70% of your income and your expenses remained the same? What would happen to you? That's where my family is. So I've been unable to help Dr. Richard Allen Miller with Albert Schweitzer University. I've been able to do one thing, and that is focus and work on our farm 24 hours a day to keep it afloat. I absolutely refuse to lose our farm due to the mismanagement and the ineptness of those who are allegedly in charge. We are headed toward a breakdown of the United States, at least a breakdown. More likely, a civil plus revolutionary war, number 2. I think that's where we're headed. The government is telling people that you can't earn an income. You must stay shut down. And I understand why they're doing that, because they mismanaged this coronavirus from the start. Had they shut down the airlines day one, we would not be in this position. Had they not allowed commerce with China from day one, we would not be in this position. They allowed all this. They've accepted the payoffs, the bribes, and so forth that enabled China to capture the entire U.S. Commerce market. Everything that you buy has Chinese content in it, everything. So if we wanted to just say, we're not going to do it anymore, we're not going to buy any more Chinese junk, we can't. We can't, because the components in everything that we buy are likely to come from China. You know, the switches, the electronics, the capacitors, the resistors, the integrated circuits, the circuit boards, the circuit board assemblies, the display panels, all of that. Even Japan cannot compete with the Chinese. And this has been brought to you by the pond scum that you have elected to represent your interests, and they have failed you. They have failed you. So what's going to happen? Now, I'm not saying y'all go out and do this. I'm just saying I can see this happening. I can see a roundup coming. Yeah, a roundup where people have had it. They've absolutely had it. There are a lot of guns in the United States. A lot of guns. And that's why the Japanese in 1941 did not invade mainland United States, because they knew that there are a lot of people with a lot of guns, and they'd go hunting the Japanese. Anyone that looked like they were Japanese, they'd be shot on sight. That's what the Japanese believed, and that's why they did not invade us. So I think there's going to be a roundup. I'm sorry to say that. I don't want to see it. Guineith Isaacs is with us live in Australia. David in Illinois. Welcome, David.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm back again, by the way.
David, I got to tell you.
Hear me a bit better now.
Yeah, it sounds better, Guineith. I got a call, and just in the last couple of days, and a guy called up, and he said he was going to call in to USA Prepares. And he said he was going to say, hi, how you doing? So you've started it, David.
No. Well, I hope I stay on top. I'm glad Guineith came back, too, because I wanted to ask her some questions and some observations. But now, we had to go out recently, I'll just give you an update on our area for the supply chain. I had to work on a dryer. Took me 2 weeks to get a belt, which, good God, fixing these things are ridiculous. So I just decided, since there was shortages, to get a new Maytag set. They said it'd take a week. I showed up there yesterday to order it. It's the mid-July is the soonest.
When you say a set, David, when you say a set, you're talking about a washer and a dryer?
Yeah, I went with the Maytag top load. Back to the top load. Yeah.
Good. And it has an agitator, a regular old?
Yes.
Okay, that's the way to go. Yes. That should last 20 years.
Yeah. Well,
okay, good.
I think we had the same Whirlpool you probably had, but somebody conned us off it, and she was too short to reach down in there, so they suckered us into these things, and I really want to just take them out and shoot them. So, the front load.
Okay, so supply chain, you're telling us that just getting a common belt, an ordinary belt for a common washing machine, common dryer, is in short supply. Is that what you're saying?
It took me over 2 weeks to get that. So I went and ordered this other set. They said at first it'd be a week. When I went there to order it yesterday, they said, sorry, it's mid-July soonest to get them delivered. Mid-July. So I walked over to the...
It's August. It's August. If you go to Home Depot on the internet and you look for a freezer, a chest freezer, delivery August. That's the earliest.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked over to the Chinese factory outlet to see what their stuff was like before I was leaving. Nothing electronics. Nothing. I mean, there's a lot of food gone. Everything was gone, and the manager said, anything from China or out of the country, he said, I can't get nothing. There's nothing to order anywhere. So,
mm-hmm. Now, that means, David, so for our class, that means if you want a coaxial cable to hook up your cable TV or to connect your antenna to your television, if you have over-the-air television, those cables come from China, too. The telephone cords come from China. The coiled cords, if you have a handset on a landline, that comes from China. The telephones themselves come from China. Of course, the cell phones come from China. It's all Chinese. And if you want a television, it's going to say Make in China on the back, too, in little tiny print. Right.
No TVs.
They're out of TVs, too?
No TVs. Nothing.
Okay. I got an email from Kathy in Ohio, USA Prepares Instructor. I got it this morning, and she said that she went to Tractor Supply, and Tractor Supply advised her that canning supplies are in short supply. That would be canning lids, canning bands, canning jars, canning supplies, short supply. I went to the internet to find them. I found some, but the price is astronomical, ridiculously high. So, yeah, they are in short supply. They really are. And those who have them want extra for them. So I just want to let you know, class, that you should have gotten them years ago when we were telling you about, we told you all this was going to happen. Yeah. We didn't say it was going to be Corona, but we said this was going to happen with the supply chain, and here we are. Yeah.
Now, one other thing, I know Amazon was saying they were going to stop people from price gouging. So I did find some things on there for her that were affordable, but that's not where they're price gouging no more. Try $50 shipping, for a $13 bag of gluten-free flour. Granted, the flour was only $13, and they had it, but $50-some-odd shipping.
Okay, so, class, I can tell you for a fact right now that Sam's Club has flour. You have to be a member, and if you have the ultra deluxe price gouged $100 membership, you get free shipping. So you can get a bag of flour at the good old price, and from the good old days, literally. And they have it right now. But you're going to have to pick it up. Yeah, small bags you can have shipped. So Sam's Club has it, and I just want to let you know that that is the case. But other places I'm not sure about. Well, the Chinese factory outlet might have them. I don't know. But, David, you're absolutely right. And here we are. And the government had been telling us that, that we, what they say, we reached the peak. And we're going on the good side of the corona panic. Well, I can tell you, I'm looking at the numbers right here, right now. Let me just do a refresh on the screen to give you the absolute latest numbers. Okay. So in the United States, up to this minute, there are 1,411,000 cases. 1,411,000 people infected. This morning, there are, from midnight till right now, there are 2,512 new cases. And today, there are 139 new deaths. So if anyone's telling you that, it's over and it's a hoax, try telling that to the 1,411,000 people who are infected, or the families of the 83,564 dead in the United States. Now, of course, there are all kinds of rumors that, anybody that dies, they just say, well, it's corona. I don't know that for a fact. I don't know that. And then there are the stories that, they would have died anyway. I don't know that either.
That's what shocks me, and I don't understand, because I've heard other people say that somebody came out on the news and mentioned that the death rates are 2/3 overrated, overnumbered. Well, I've searched everywhere, and everything that came from actual medical staff from anywhere you look at, it's all underreported. Because
that's right.
Deaths that. So I don't know where they're getting this at. I've searched now for a week and a half, and I have not found nothing anywhere that says that they're that overreported. I heard they're underreported, that they're actually going back and having to change death certificates if they happen to have the samples that they can retest for these individuals. So even children, and look at what's happening to children, and that's starting to jump, You
had a question for Guineith?
Yes, I was going to ask her a question. She was brought up about the police situation there, and I was going to bring that up about it before. Now, I don't know about her arrangement with the police, how the police act there. I don't know when they pulled people over in the past, would they do like American cops and check your wallets and things like that and take what they want? Now, my thing is, and I wondered this when this first started, and I actually mentioned it on your show, was when this starts to hit, is it going to hit the police and it's going to stress them out? Because they're not, they got accustomed to having all that extra free spending cash. They'll go out there and have a good time. Does that happen there? And now with this happen, are they afraid to do that? And could that be also causing them a lot more stress and they're just taking it out on the public?
Well, I'll tell you what is happening here. I still do have some people who have, let's just say they have contacts in the Victoria Police, okay? They've gone from pulling people over in their cars to pulling people over when they're walking down the sidewalk. And the police are going to the places where there are the most people walking down the sidewalk, and they are operating the same business model, but it's gone from maybe a maximum $700 or $800 fine for a broken taillight or whatever, or an expired plate, or a $1,200 to $1,500 fine for standing too close to somebody. That's how it's going down here. And they are beginning to show their true colours. They are beginning to just abduct people off the street for, because they think that they're standing too close to somebody, or they're holding a sign or wearing a T-shirt that they don't like. There was what I was going to say when the line started breaking up really bad was that there was a guy at a protest in Melbourne last weekend, and he was quoting Revelation chapter 13 and saying, this is what's coming. And as soon as he started quoting Revelation chapter 13 in the Bible, you could hear them. They were like hornets. They were like a nest of demons, and they descended on him, probably about 10 or 20 police. And I've got this video posted on my YouTube page. And by the way, I also have, there's another video site that's come out, and it's very secure. Basically, videos can't be deleted off of this site. It's called Library, which is LBRY.TV. And if you go, I have two channels. One of them hasn't got any videos on yet. That's Guineith Isaacs, or at Guineith Isaacs on Library TV. So if you go into library.tv and just search for Guineith Isaacs, you'll come up with my own channel, which is empty at the moment. It's going to get videos loaded on it. But I've got another channel on library.tv called Blocked Videos. So if you go onto library.tv and search Blocked Videos, then you'll get the videos that I refer to in this show. Okay, and I've chosen that platform because it's blockchain verified, and it's impossible for videos to be deleted off of it. They can't mess with the view counts and all of this sort of thing. So, yeah, this video is on my library account, lbry.tv, and it's this guy, and he's standing there at a public protest in Melbourne. Actually, I think it was more common law rights protest than coronavirus lockdown protest. I think it was a bit of both, but more that we're losing our rights in this country at the moment like you would not believe. And they descended on him, probably about 10 or 20 police, as soon as he started quoting Revelation 13. It was near the end of the protest, and the police had behaved themselves until that point. But as soon as he started quoting Revelation 13, they took him, and they dragged him off, and they put him in the back of a paddy wagon, and I don't know what's happened to him.
Guineith Isaacs is live in Australia. David is in Illinois. I am in Missouri. And David brought up an excellent point. And the question is, when the police, the corrupt blue team, are used to an increased income as a result of their extracurricular activities, what would they do in the corona panic when fewer people are on the roads? How would they keep up that income? Or would they resort to just the plain old-fashioned salary that they got? And what we're hearing is that they are keeping up their arrest rate by arresting people who are standing too close to each other. Is that what you're saying, Guineith?
Yeah. They're arresting people for standing too close to each other. Mm-hmm. So what we're seeing, actually, they're bumping it up to a new level. And they are now so self-evidently the bad guys that literally nobody likes them anymore, you know, except for the most brainwashed, deranged loonies out there. They are the only ones who are still saying, yeah, the police are on our side, they're the good guys, yay. And I think that we crossed a Rubicon last weekend because, like I said, in 2 days in a row, you had people, you know, just, I mean, this video that's just gone viral, it's just all over the internet, the woman holding the yellow sign, and it's on Block Videos, my library channel. You know, getting a child, she had her 4-year-old child with her, just basically marching up and down a public road in Sydney, not near anyone, not, you know, she was maintaining her social distancing, but that didn't matter to the blue team because she was holding a sign saying, you know, that if you don't know your rights, you don't have any. Magna Carta. That's what was written on the sign. Okay? And that so triggered the blue team that they, you know, they grabbed her. She tried to get away. She had her child with her. Her child was clinging to her, screaming, 4-year-old boy. And, they ended up ripping this child out of its mother's arms, and that child would be traumatized for life, And they put her in the back of the paddy wagon. They put the child's father was standing nearby, by the way, and they would not give the child to its father. And the father was saying, "That's my kid. That's my kid. Give me my kid." And the police would not give this man his own son. And they took him away. And, the really horrible Nazi-level thing is that they will probably now be facing a Families Department investigation for endangering the child by bringing it to a protest. Where her protest was her walking up and down the road with a yellow piece of cardboard strapped across her shoulders saying, "If you don't know your rights, you don't have any, Magna Carta." And that was her protest. Sure,
I wonder what the
completely
Queen,
peaceful protest.
I wonder what the Queen thinks about this while she's hibernating in Windsor Castle.
Yeah, I'd love to know. I want to know what she's doing to uphold all of our common law rights. Mm-hmm. And I've been wanting to know this for a long time, including that I wrote to her a while back when I was having my own little set of challenges, with pedophiles stalking my kids and all that. She didn't help me either. But this is it. This is where we are in Australia. This is what happens when you lose your guns. America, do not give up your guns. Do not give up your guns. This is what happens. What we are facing in Australia is what happens when you give up your guns. We were tricked out of our guns many years ago by a couple of mass shootings that were both absolutely staged. One of the gunmen was a man by the name of Julian Knight, and he lived in Melbourne, and his best friends were two young, at that time they were young, they're not young anymore, two gentlemen by the name of Chris Reed and Damien Reed. And Chris Reed and Damien Reed were the half brothers of the infamous Melbourne gangster and hitman Mark Chopper Reed. And the Reed boys and Julian Knight came into my husband Archie's mission one day and said, "Hey, guess what, Archie?" And he said, "What?" And I said, "We've all just signed up for the Australian Army." And Archie was, he was a bit of a hard man. He'd been a gangster from the age of 6. When he heard this, he said, "You did what?" I said, "We've all just joined the Australian Army and they just let us in." And he absolutely flipped out. And after they left, he hardly ever did this, but he called up the Victoria Police and he said, "These 3 young men are very dangerous. They are gun psychos. They talk about shooting people up." All
right, hold that thought. Hold that thought. We're going to a break. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Guineith's with us in Australia, Guineith Isaacs. And David's with us in Illinois. And, I just wanted to mention that President Donald Trump has done a terrible job of managing the corona panic. He has said to the country, we're going to lock down. And then he said, we're going to unlock it. No, we're not. Yes, we are. And then, now, of course, I'm paraphrasing. And then he said, I'll tell you what, we'll just leave it up to y'all governors, and y'all figure it out, because it's such a mess. I believe he did that because he doesn't want to be blamed for it, because he locked the country down. And then Tesla, the factory in California, manufacturing electric cars, decides that they want to violate the shutdown by the California state of California, and they want to reopen, and they say they're going to reopen. And what does Donald Trump say? Great. Go ahead. Reopen. He's the guy that shut them down. So this is newspeak, doublespeak, and this is what we were trying to teach you. months ago with Dr. Richard Allen Miller. It's very difficult to try to figure out what's going on in the United States of America, actually worldwide. So there are people who have decided that they want to get a haircut. And so what's happened? So in Michigan, there's a barbershop, and Michigan has shut down barbershops, but people want to get haircuts, so this barbershop opened up in Owasso, Michigan, Owosso, Michigan. So armed members of the Michigan Home Guard stood outside this barbershop ready to blockade the door if the police arrived. There are other protests throughout the country where people showed up and they decided they were going to be armed. And there's a video of one guy, an image and a video of one guy who had a rocket launcher. Now, I don't know if it's just a tube for a rocket launcher. I don't know if it was a demilitarized rocket launcher or whether it was a real rocket launcher. But this guy was walking around with one of those. And others with him were walking around with ARs, AR-15s, maybe even AR-10s. What's an AR-10? An AR-10 is like an AR-15. AR-15 is a .223 or .556 cartridge rifle, semi-automatic, sometimes select fire. And an AR-10 is just like that, except it's in .308. It looks pretty similar. Just a little heavier. Actually, a lot heavier. So here we are in the United States of America, and we have people who are frosted. They can't figure out what's going on. Of course they can't figure out what's going on, because the government is changing its mind by the minute. People don't know what to do. Are they locked down or not? Who knows? And then the police are saying, well, we remember as we were locked down, So they start arresting people. So the police are out of control, the government's out of control, and the people are saying, what's up? I understand that. Go ahead.
Sorry. I was waiting
David,
to see if you'd Sorry.
One quick question before you ask your question. David, did I describe that correctly?
Oh yeah. That's where I was going to go with this. I was going to bring up the Michigan situation before you did. And the government's tripling, the governor's tripling down on this. She said this is going to be dealt with or not. So I think we could be on the verge of the next, where's the bullet that shot that ruins America situation? Because there's people that are tense and they ain't playing. You got cops. Now here's my observation about you have cops beating up and assaulting people if they don't have a mask on, even if they're away from other individuals. Now, wait a minute. If you're worried about getting the virus, you've done physical contact with this individual. So now, does that make any sense to you? I mean, really?
No, and that's what I'm saying. The government is giving mixed messages. Y'all better wear masks. But why aren't the cops all wearing masks? Why aren't the governors all wearing masks? Why isn't the president wearing a mask? How come the vice president just started wearing a mask like 2 days ago? Why? Okay. Why is that? Why are we getting these messages that are mixed? Do as I say, not as I do. Why? So when I was in management, which was a long time ago, I led by example. I wouldn't say do what I say. I would lead by example. I would do it. And then the people who reported to me followed my lead. So I would lead by example. And I suggest, Mr. President, you consider doing the same thing. And I also suggest you stop listening to these corrupt international bankers that go to the synagogue of greed. Stop listening to them. Had you not listened to them, you would have shut down the airports, you would have shut down the flights coming from China, and you would have quarantined everyone coming from China. And we wouldn't be in this mess where you are authorizing trillions of dollars that we can't afford to be squandered to companies that you favor. People are broke. absolutely broke. They cannot afford their food. They cannot afford their rent. They cannot afford their mortgage payments. And cash flow that goes from one person, the first consumer, to the store, from the store to the landlord, from the landlord to the bank, back into recirculation, that is stopping. People have spent that $1,200. They're looking for the next three that haven't been approved yet. There will be rioting in the streets as I see it. There'll be slashing, trashing, crashing, and burning in the United States as well as the rest of the world as a result of the mismanagement of this crisis. Now, I'm not saying Joe Biden is the choice. Boy, he'd be one of my last choices. I think we've got the best guy possible. But what it's showing, and I'd like both of your opinions on this, what this corona panic is showing is that we do not have qualified people in positions of representation in the United States. They don't have a clue. And what is being obviously shown is that they have been lying and cheating and not protecting us. They haven't protected us from crappy Chinese products. They haven't protected us from inflation. They haven't protected the food supply. They haven't protected the medical supply. They haven't protected us from a panic that we are now in. They haven't protected us from a medical crisis. They've unleashed radioactivity in the world. And what are they spraying in the skies? And why haven't those planes been shot down? Why? Why? Because the government is corrupt. At all levels. Top to bottom, left to right. Guineith, ladies first. Any comments?
Okay, I would say that you're absolutely right. They're showing themselves for who they really are. And they are the problem. They're not the solution. I mean, who funded this stupid virus in the first place? It was developed by the U.S. government, sold by Bill and Hillary and Obama to the Chinese. They did their own little amendments to it, and then they passed it back on to the rest of the world. That seems to be the chain of events here. And, in the background is Mr. Bill Gates. He wants to, have this virus going all over the place, and he wants to say that his Hegelian solution is to the problem that he created through funding this Wuhan lab. It came out that he was the main funder of the Wuhan lab that was working on this virus. Is a vaccine that's going to be a mark of the beast, Revelation chapter 13 nightmare. That is going to be the end of anybody's freedom and eternity for everybody who takes it. Yet this tattoo, this vaccine tattoo that he's developed, is the devil's cattle mark. And you're a fool. You wouldn't take it. I'm not saying you, Vincent. I'm saying to the class. You're a fool if you take it, because this will always track you. They will be. It will have something where it sends out a frequency where everybody knows who you are and where you are all the time. And you are talking about masks and the confusion over masks. Now, I'm not suggesting that anybody do this, but I'm just commentating. I can see this going to happen. I'm just waiting for the criminal class to latch onto this whole mask thing and take advantage of it. And I pointed this out on my Facebook page about, a week or two ago, that I'm actually really, really surprised that the various criminal organizations out there have not taken advantage of this mask thing for their own ends. And I'm not suggesting that anybody should go and do this. But what I'm saying is that I can see that this is going to be another domino effect. And I said back in March, I said that the real problem with this virus will not even be the virus itself. It is a genuine virus, and it's got some really, really nasty tricks up its sleeve. But it's the problem itself is not going to be the virus itself. It's going to be the domino cascading effect, and that is exactly what we're seeing now. Okay? The police don't know what the dickens they're doing. Okay? The governors of the states don't know what the dickens they're doing. You know, all the way up to the federal level. Do you know what they're doing in Canberra, in the Australian national capital? You know, you hear about Donald Trump building a wall. They're building a steel wall around our national capital. They are making themselves a walled city around our national capital. And nobody who has if you don't have a good reason to be in Canberra, then you'll be arrested. So the politicians are going to make this their little armed fortress, their little, forbidden city in this, talking about the Chinese capital. I don't know, maybe that's where they got the idea from. Maybe it's actually the Chinese building this wall since they've come in and taken over our country anyway. But they are taking a steel wall.
They are taking over. The Chinese are taking over Australia. They're buying businesses and real estate at discount prices because of the corona panic. David, when we come back, you're up next. David, I mentioned the corruption, the mismanagement at the highest levels and all levels of government, the mess that they've made of the coronavirus and caused the corona panic. Those are my words, the corona panic. Did you have any comments?
Yeah, I'm not as harsh on Trump as a lot of people are. One, in my opinion, he's not a doctor. He's a businessman. He's only able to do as much as what his advisors notify him as. And if there's a lack of information on that behalf, then he's the one that takes the heat for it. And he does change his mind. I personally like that because he saved lives because he would not take action where other innocent people would die. And I know he gets slack for that. Hey, he didn't want to have that on his conscience. I admire him for that. Is he making messes? He causes a lot of problems for himself? Sure. But I've never heard anything out of a president as much as I have heard from him, good or bad. But he tried to stop plane flights coming in from China. He was called a racist. Then he tried to close the borders. He was called a racist. You can't do that. You got to let him in. Then what are you going to do? You let him in. You didn't stop him. No matter what he does, it's his fault. He seems to be the one at fault. So and honestly, he must enjoy it because it seems like he's getting younger where all the other presidents get a little older. But God forbid, I don't want neither one of him or the vice president to get sick, and then we got to deal with Pelosi. Look at her state. It's a mess. I don't want that the rest all over everywhere else. But now as far as vaccines, they tested and used my body to test medicines before, which I didn't need it. But hey, that stuff's hell to go through. And I'm not taking nothing like that. I'm not being a guinea pig like that again if I could do anything about it. They're going to have to handcuff me away and force me down. And honestly, if I have to go through the things they did a long time ago, I'll probably put a bullet to my own head. I'm sorry, but I'm just being honest.
David, I'm in total agreement with you. I would much rather have President Donald Trump. But the problem with President Trump is that he relies on advisors. And I believe his advisors, many of them, have their own agendas for feathering their own nests, enriching themselves. And unfortunately, he falls prey to some of that advice. And it causes this advice causes him to flip-flop. I believe he has meetings. I can't prove any of this, of course, but I believe he has a meeting at, let's say, 9 o'clock and with a banker, and the banker says, we're going to have to open up. And so he announces that we're going to open up. And then at 10 o'clock, he has a meeting with a doctor, and the doctor says it'd be crazy to open up. A lot of people will become infected and die. So then the announcement comes out that we're going to lock down. I believe that kind of thing is happening.
Yes, I agree. And it's his advisor. And if he fires his advisors, it's his fault. He's firing them to cover something up if they're not doing their job properly. Now, when I have a different take on where he backed off on closing down states, he was going to close down states. But then all the governors said, hey, that's against your rights. You don't have the power to do that. That's ours. We want it. So he said, okay, fine. You have the problem. I don't have if you look at the order of what he did, he was going to do that, and he got slack for it. And then he let the governors have it.
That's correct.
And then the governors gave him slack because he didn't close it down. So if they would work together instead of work away from each other, maybe we wouldn't be in this situation.
Right. So what we're learning is that some governors want to lock down. They want to protect people. Other governors want to increase the commerce. And it was as simple as this. And we said this on day one, right here on USA Prepares. There's a choice. You either lock down and save lives, or you open up and save the economy. But the economy is based on lives. So it's a really, really difficult situation. And frankly, I know he wanted to act more quickly than he did. However, he didn't act quick enough, because people said to me, even on the air, why, if this virus was real, why haven't we closed down the airports? And I said, and I'm paraphrasing, I said, we can't even get the government to agree on a meeting within a week. Who's going to show up and when? That takes longer than 1 week. So shutting down the airports would take much longer. We'll be right back. I just heard at the bottom of the hour news that the airline industry, that they used the word apocalyptic. And what I heard was that it might be 3 to 5 years before passengers return to the pre-pandemic levels. My question is, why so soon? If you think about it, the GDP, the GDP has been flying to meetings and vacations and meaningless travel. Because they need to get away and rub elbows with their friends. And if you think about it, the corona panic is a result of the wealthy. It's the wealthy initially spreading this virus across the globe. It's the wealthy flying from China to the United States and back and forth. People who have sold out the United States with their companies. They've had the manufacturing operations in China rather than have those manufacturing jobs in the United States. So the wealthy Americans would fly to China to visit the production of this stuff that was made by China and sold in the United States, like Nike sneakers and all other kinds of sneakers, New Balance, Adidas, and the whole lot of them. I mean, it's just one example. All the electronics. So those who have U.S. Sales would visit their Chinese factory operations to see how it's going and travel back and forth. And many of them brought the virus with them. And then the greedy GDP, the wealthy, you can be wealthy and generally dumb at the same time. You can. And the proof of it is there are people who are, like the family in St. Louis, Missouri. The guy, the father has a daughter and she flies back from abroad. She brings the virus home. They're under quarantine, the whole family. The other daughter has a father-daughter dance, and the father and daughter go to the dance at the school. They infect the school. They infect 1,000 people because of their own greed. Because they had to go. They were under self-quarantine. They knew how risky it was. And the thing about the masks, If someone is infected and does not wear a mask, it's irresponsible and reckless, in my opinion. And there's a case of a woman who worked at a transportation authority, a municipality, and one of the customers spit on her, coughed on her. She died. Now, what would you do if you knew who that guy was? And that was your mother, who was taken out by some careless, reckless, thoughtless parasite. What would you do if you owned a store and you had customers that came in and started coughing on their hands and touching the freezer handles, the freezer equipment, food, okay, and surfaces that are common for people to touch? What would you do? This is where we are in the United States of America. We have the GDP that is reckless. Now, whether they think it's funny, or they think it's a joke, or they're trying to kill people, or they're just illiterate, I don't know. But it's unacceptable. It is absolutely unacceptable. So what would you do if it was your spouse, your child, or your mother that was working in one of those booths for a transportation company and, a transportation authority like a municipality, like in New York City, and they didn't have protection where to keep people from spitting and coughing and sneezing on you? What would you do? Would you go to work? I certainly wouldn't. Guineith, any comments?
Yeah, this is, like I say, this is more cascading effects. Regarding the airliners, okay, there's an issue that I haven't heard anyone bring up, and I would like to bring it up. What happens if you leave a piece of machinery sitting in the paddock? It begins to degrade. It begins to rust out. Mechanical parts start to fail on it just from it sitting there. And you've got thousands and thousands of jet airliners sitting on airport runways because in the open weather, because they don't have the hangars to put them in. You will not just be able to get those aircraft, thousands and thousands of them. There's photos of this on the internet, by the way, drone footage, films of them, thousands and thousands of jet airliners, international airplanes, sitting on runways at airports because they don't know where to put them. They're sitting out there in the weather, and they are going to mechanically degrade. They will not just be able to take these thousands of airliners and just put them back in the air. That's not how it works. Because if they do, they're going to start falling out of the sky.
Let's make it really simple, Guineith. Absolutely. Let's make it really simple. Now, we talked on USA Prepares about this in the last couple of days. And I mentioned that there are stores that have been shut down, and they sell leather products like belts and shoes and pocketbooks. And they have turned moldy. They look like Petri dishes. They have grown hair on the shoes, the belts, and, the leather purses and pocketbooks. Leather products. Not all of them, some of them. And also pleather, plastic leather. So for some reason, they have become Petri dishes. And the same thing, I believe, is true for vehicles. And I know for a fact that if you leave a vehicle in a humid area, it will grow mold on the inside of that vehicle. It will. So same thing could happen to airplanes. The same thing. Well, why? Why don't they? Well, because you use them. You turn on the air conditioning, you turn on the heat, you turn on the ventilation system, you use them. There's airflow. Well, if you don't use them, it's a great place for mold, kind of like a basement. And that's why people have dehumidifiers in their basements, so that the contents in the basement and the walls and the floor and the ceilings don't grow mold. Guineith, you are absolutely right. But it's not just airplanes. It's everything. It's the buildings. It's the offices. It's the stores. It's the vehicles. It's the buses. It's the subways. It's everything. If we don't use it, it grows mold. And the factories that have been shut down. Do you want your products made in a factory that's been shut down, that's growing mold? Or do you want it disinfected? And the question really is, and I don't know the answer to this one, when they spray these disinfectants, what are these disinfectants? Is it chlorine? What is it? Is it iodine? What is it? I don't know. But do I want the spaghetti factory to be disinfected and have boxes of spaghetti sprayed with disinfectant? Or Sam's Club? Or Walmart when they disinfect those stores? Or the trucks? And the trucks that have, undelivered packages. Do I want my packages sprayed inside those trucks? No. What is a disinfectant? No one says. And if you look at maybe I'm just not reading the right things. Maybe all the articles that I've read about disinfection don't say what the disinfectant is. Maybe they do say it, and I can't find it. But what is it? If you know, please tell me, class, because I can't find it. I read a lot. I still can't find it. Any comments, David?
I don't know what that is, and I get concerned about that as well. But I don't have a problem with airplanes. I don't go on them. If they're losing money, they got billions. I don't really care.
And if they go under, it doesn't really affect me except for air freight, and there's still ground transportation. But what really frosts me is these careless, reckless, greedy people who fly around because they're on vacation. They just need to fly someplace else. Why? Why do they have to drill holes in our collective skies? Because they've got enough money to be stupid. Why should we allow that? I think the corona panic is showing us that people are doing really stupid things. And
now, there's one other thing I think this is showing us as well. And I don't mean to go back a little bit, but everybody wants to, I'm sorry to bring this up, but everybody wants to kind of blame Trump either way for this, no matter what he does. I think this also goes to show you that the man in the White House ain't the one that's got all the power.
That's true. Well, John F. Kennedy said that when he was elected president back in the 60s. He said, wow, I'm paraphrasing. People think that the president has a lot of power. That's vastly overrated. Right. Because, and actually, we don't really want a dictator, do we? But we don't want stupid people throttling back good decisions. And that's the problem with committees. A committee is a group of people that assembles to avoid blame for bad decisions. At least that's one of my definitions of it. David, I've got a question for you. I know you listen to a lot of talk radio, and I do not. Are you still hearing talk radio programs saying that this is still a hoax?
Yes, it's all. It's hard. I listen to so many things at one time because my mind gets bored and I don't sleep much. But it's hard to hear them, and it's more of an entertaining situation now, entertainment, because I'm just surprised. I'm surprised because I'm seeing these things in the videos and people are going there. And, okay, in my area, your area, our hospitals may not be full. Maybe it hasn't came this way yet. Whatever. Some of the other areas, which we said a long time ago, they were going to get hit, New York, them bigger areas. Now, granted, if those hospitals are full, why don't they ship some of them patients to the other places that have the equipment in the lab areas in the medical facility to move them so they wouldn't be under so much strain? That's something I think they could have done and they still could do. But as far as saying this is all a hoax because it's not, is outbroken in your local area, your local farm community or your area yet, you ought to be lucky. Listen to some of these kids that are getting this now, and they're lucky to get out of the intensive care. Kids.
David,
listen to what they got to say.
David, is USA Prepares one of the few who is still maintaining that this is serious and it's real and it's not a hoax?
Yeah. There are not many. There is not many. And it is amazing to me how from 1 minute, one show to the next day they may be on, that it just flip-flops back and forth. So that tells me it's according to whatever the discussion, whoever's on that show at that particular time, you know. So some of that stuff changes as well. According
it sounds like what I was saying about President Trump. He gets advice and he changes his mind. It sounds like you're saying that the same broadcasters, if you're saying the same broadcasters, they are for it or against it. It's either a hoax or it's not, depending on the guest. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, but see, Trump. But see, those are their shows. Trump's just the president with people telling him what to do.
Yeah. All right, hold that thought. We'll be right back. Guineith, your comments when we come back. Class, I'm literally furious. Got this bottle of Schiff glucosamine plus MSM. It's in my hand, 150 coated tablets. It says on the label, 1,500 milligrams glucosamine plus MSM, 1,500 milligrams. Then in small letters it says per 3 tablets. So it says 150 coated tablets in the bottle. And then it says on the back, small letters, serving size 3 tablets. Servings per container, 50. That makes sense. 3 tablets per serving. Then it says amount per serving. Glucosamine, 1,500 milligrams. MSM, 1,500 milligrams. But that's for 3 tablets. You can't believe anything. Nothing. Not even a formerly trusted brand named Schiff, because they're misleading, just like everybody else. Guineith, you mentioned that you've got 20 acres, and was this regarding my broadcast where I said that I feel that a minimum to be somewhat self-sufficient is 40 acres. Did you have a comment about that?
Yes. Yeah. I would like to say that there are ways that you can use your land to multiply the amount of acres that you have. And the type of farming that I do is permaculture. And you mentioned that you would need 20 acres of woodlot. And I would agree. I've got around about probably, about 18 acres of this farm is forest. Okay? Probably about 17 or 18 acres of this land is forest. And it's eucalyptus forest. And that's my woodlot. And that's the canopy. And the understory, there's grass growing there. There's various herbs growing there. I plant smaller trees like fruit trees and nut trees and all that sort of thing there. But the canopy is my woodlot. It grows above my head. And if you can arrange your land in that way, and because it's a eucalyptus forest, it's a fairly open canopy, so the sunlight still gets into the grass. It still makes the grass grow. And, it's something where if you think intelligently about how you can use your land, then you can get more production out of it. And you could possibly have more than enough for what you would need to supply what you need, And another example being, I have a horse, and I'm looking to provide enough food for my horse by planting particular plants to mulch up with a wood chipper or a mulcher. This is like a household type mulcher, so that I can feed my horse over the summer on this herbage. And, I could grow possibly enough herbage to feed the horse, whereas if I was growing grass, I wouldn't get the biomass that I needed to feed her. Now, if you can think about this sort of thing, think flexibly. And the other thing is there's a tree that grows around here called tree lucerne, okay? It's a tree, but it's a species of alfalfa, lucerne, but it grows as a tree instead of as a herb on the ground. So I could have the herb growing underneath, and then here and there around the farm, I could have these loosen trees growing. So that's another layer, and you layer upon layer upon layer, and you can actually get a huge amount of production, even out of a semi-arid or an arid system, by planting plants that don't require much irrigation, especially if you're in a semi-arid system. Okay, you've really got to watch your water. You've got to be concerned about your water all the time. You know, there are ways of doing it, and by doing that, by maintaining the forest canopy, and because they're eucalyptuses, they drop their branches in a high wind, and that's really easy for us to solve. We don't go into the forest in a high wind if we can help it, okay? But those branches that they drop, that's our firewood, so we don't have to ever cut the trees. The trees provide their own wood. You know, the branches, they get old and they dry off and they drop, and then a new layer of branches grows on the same tree. And some of these trees that are in this forest are hundreds and hundreds of years old. And so, you know, if you think intelligently and look at your own system and your own landscape, you can maybe figure out ways to do this sort of thing in your own landscape. Does that make sense, Vincent?
It absolutely does make sense, and farms in Europe are typically 10 and 20 acres, and they make them work. So the idea is optimization. I'd rather have 40 acres because I'd rather have enough trees to have the branches fall for firewood. I don't want to cut trees down because that's like killing the goose that laid the golden egg. David, thank you so much for being with us. Guineith Isaacs, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
See you all next week. See you next week.